Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Ethereum. What is Ethereum? If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So a lot of times people enter cryptocurrency and they start buying random assets because they were shilled somewhere. But a lot of times you don't necessarily know what it is you're buying. And I see a lot of misinformation out there about Ethereum and a general lack of understanding as to what it actually is, and not a great understanding of what is it trying to accomplish and what is it not willing to sacrifice in order to accomplish those goals. So in this presentation, we're going to systematically go through what is Ethereum. Now, to start with, if I were to ask someone, some people might just say, well, it's a ticker that's up more today than it was a year ago. And hey, the price has increased over the last year, but that's not why we're here. Another person might say, well, it's a chain that requires me to take out a second mortgage on my house to pay the transaction fees. And while the transaction fees can be high at times, I will grant you that, they are working on solutions that are not going to compromise decentralization. And that's what we're going to get to later in this presentation. And then finally, you might say, well, something about a flippening, the idea that one day maybe Ethereum will flip Bitcoin by market capitalization. But so far, that remains to be seen. So these are general things that I see around about related to Ethereum, but let's actually dive into what Ethereum actually is. Before we do that, I just want to mention contributors to this presentation. Me, of course, no one really cares about that, but Nox Lumen, he's got a Medium page, you can follow him here. And then Sudoku Q, you can follow them on Reddit, and this is their username. So just a quick shout out to those people, and I will link that in the description below if you want to follow them. So what is Ethereum? What is it? Well, we know what it is a Turing-complete virtual network that runs applications and stores information on a blockchain. A Turing-complete virtual network. I guess that's a wrap. I'm glad we got that out of the way. I'll see you guys next time for some price discussion. All kidding aside, it just begs the question, of course, well, what is a Turing-complete virtual network? What is that? Well, to understand that, it just means that Ethereum has the ability to understand and implement any future agreement, even ones that have not been thought about yet. This is very important for Ethereum, okay? Imagine if it were not Turing-complete and it could not handle future agreements that were not thought about, then it would really limit its capabilities. But because it is Turing-complete, it has the ability to understand and implement any future agreement, even ones that have not been thought about, okay? So Turing completeness originated from a mathematician and computer scientist named Alan Turing, and he created essentially a machine that can run a program, or it can take a program, run that program, and then give an output. Now, if you've been to college or in high school or middle school, wherever, if you've taken a computer science course, basically most programming languages are Turing complete, meaning you come up with your code, you feed it into the program, you execute the code, it runs it, and then it gives you some type of output. Hopefully a good output if you actually programmed it correctly. So we know that virtually all programming languages today are in fact Turing complete. If it were not Turing complete, it would not be successful in a lot of what it's trying to accomplish. And what that would be it would not be able to create a protocol used for smart contracts, because a lot of these smart contracts, we still haven't thought about what they're going to be yet. It would not be able to have decentralized autonomous organizations and decentralized applications. So Ethereum being Turing complete allows it to go after these goals. Okay, so that is what Turing complete means. So going back to what is Ethereum, again, it's a Turing complete virtual network that runs applications and stores information on a blockchain. There are two types of wallets or proofs of ownership for Ethereum, and they are private key accounts like Bitcoin and contract accounts, which you can use to read and write smart contract code. Ethereum's transactions have three important differences, okay? Those important differences are they can be created by a contract or an entity. They contain data based on the specifications of the smart contract. And finally, the transactions can have responses by the recipient. So these are three key differences of Ethereum transactions. And additionally, contracts, we know that they can also be layered on top of other contracts. And in order to complete these transactions on the Ethereum network, you have to use Ether. You have to use Ether, also known as gas. And again, for it to go through, it has to have a valid argument. For instance, a well-written smart contract and enough Ether in your wallet. From here, okay, we have the Ethereum Virtual Machine. Now, the Ethereum Virtual Machine, or EVM, again, is a Turing-complete protocol, which is used to understand other types of protocols and code languages. So you need some level of interoperability to make everything work. So the EVM, again, or the Ethereum Virtual Machine, stacks, memorizes, and stores data while accessing all information regarding transaction information as an output. That's what it does. So it stacks, memorizes, and stores all this data. A lot of you guys are familiar with Solidity, I'm sure, but it's Solidity and other programming languages are used on Ethereum, and they're compiled through the Ethereum Virtual Machine. And when it executes code on a node, the blockchain documents its state. Ethereum's virtual machine and the Solidity language is important for interoperability. This is what I was mentioning earlier. This is key. You need some level of interoperability so that Ethereum can seamlessly communicate with and understand other blockchains. This is crucial to some degree for Ethereum to have this level of interoperability. Okay, now the architecture behind Ethereum, Ethereum's blocks contain the previous state with its current state. Okay, so because Ethereum can essentially comprehend prior states by referencing previous blocks that point towards the current state. Unlike most blockchains, Ethereum has a multitude of clients that come together to form a consensus. Okay, and from here, users can choose whatever clients they want, and they can use, they can choose whatever clients to use to basically run on the Ethereum network. Now, researchers and client implementers write papers, proposals, and possible updates. You may be wondering, well, what's really driving the development of Ethereum? It's from you and me. It's from anyone. It's decentralized. Anyone can theoretically contribute. Proposals, people get together, talk about possible updates, and then they ultimately agree on protocol upgrades, which finalize the specifications. Now, I should say that after the specifications are locked, the client implementers and build the upgrades into the various clients, but it's different clients using different languages while remaining interoperable. This is key. This is different than a lot of other blockchains because the client implementers are independent developer teams unrelated to the Ethereum Foundation. The point here is that it keeps the protocol development decentralized. This is the key. It keeps it decentralized. This is different from many other chains, which only have one client with one development team. Though in the case of Bitcoin, even though there's one client, developer team is still decentralized. But this is not generally true of most other blockchains. Okay, so the key here is decentralization. Bitcoin and Ethereum are massively decentralized protocols, and nothing else comes even close to them in terms of their level of decentralization. This is a fact. Okay, this is a fact. And when we talk about gas fees and whatnot and why they're high, the reason they're high is because Ethereum is simply not willing to sacrifice a level of decentralization to lower the gas fees. So it's a trade-off. So there are other blockchains where you might say, well, these are leaps and bounds ahead of Ethereum. A lot of them aren't. Some of them are Ethereum clones, or maybe they're not cloned from Ethereum now, but previously, and and they just raise the gas limit. Now, the downside of raising the gas limit, again, is you make it more computationally intensive. Therefore, the average user is going to be less likely to be able to run a node. Therefore, it makes it more centralized. So Ethereum's goal is to accomplish these things, accomplish these goals that it has while remaining decentralized. And that's the reason why the fees have not come down, is because they're simply not willing to sacrifice any level of decentralization to accomplish lower fees. They're on the cutting edge technology, trying to figure out what are the best solutions, and they're pushing ahead with those solutions, and those are going to be implemented. And we're going to talk about those later in the presentation as well. So generally speaking, why would one want to use Ethereum? Well, again, it's decentralized. If you think about it, this is a reason why some of us are here. Of course, most people are here for the prices. I'm here for the prices, not gonna lie. But a lot of crypto, it's all about decentralization. Now, when it actually comes to making money, people start to care less and less about decentralization, and they just care about what's going to give them the highest return. But in terms of decentralization, that is one reason to use Ethereum. It's also censorship resistant, cryptographically hard, trustless. Trustless is important. As we always say, don't trust, verify. There's no reason you need to trust anyone. You don't need to trust a third party, a centralized bank, right? It's trustless, don't trust, verify, and permissionless. Those are some reasons why to use Ethereum. Some other reasons include a lot of the applications being built on Ethereum, such as decentralized finance, or DeFi. This is one of the main catalysts of this market cycle. I would say the top three are probably institutional investors, decentralized finance, and non-fungible tokens. Those are probably the three biggest. There's obviously a lot of others that are probably close to it, or you might say that there's some that beat those three. But to me, decentralized finance, NFTs that have gotten really the attention of a lot of artists and whatnot with large followings, and institutional investors are largely responsible for how well the cryptocurrency asset class has been doing. And DeFi, essentially, we're just talking about a collection of smart contracts to execute an end goal run by a collection of peer-to-peer permissionless networks. The benefits of DeFi, you have privacy, security, censorship resistance, and trustlessness. And so, hey, it's great when you can take out a loan and you don't have to go to the bank to do it. There's a lot of things you can do with DeFi. You can, there's liquidity pools, there's lending, there's all sorts of things you can do with DeFi, yield farming, and it makes it so much easier than having to worry about some centralized party. So some advantages. Now, let's be honest, there's some downsides too. It's difficult to maintain, scalability issues, and the user experience leaves a lot to be desired. Also, if you're trusting smart contracts in general written by someone you don't know, you have to be somewhat cautious. So there are definitely limitations to decentralized finance that need to be overcome. But of course, this is a booming asset class, and people are working towards overcoming them. Beyond DeFi, we have things like ENS domains. So, one application of this could be you take a wallet address and you turn it into an easy to understand domain to receive. Some people don't like dealing with these long addresses, these long strings of characters, but with ENS domains, you can just take a wallet address and turn it into an easy to understand domain in order to receive transactions. But ENS domains, they can also be used to access websites and protocols. And essentially, it's a decentralized alternative to the fairly centralized DNS the internet world uses today. Non-fungible tokens, which are essentially digital assets on the blockchain. In this most recent bull market, the main catalyst, or the main area that was being explored with NFTs, was in the digital art space. I'm convinced that this space is going to extend beyond, maybe into things like real estate and other asset classes that will make crypto even more desirable in blockchain and non-fungible tokens. I think we've only scratched the surface as to the usefulness of NFTs. And then finally, at least on this slide, we have decentralized autonomous organizations, also known as DAOs. They're smart contracts that they can be used for things like long-term payments as a mortgage or a monthly service. They can also be involved in they're also used in things like prediction markets, identity, etc. Now, let's actually get to the roadmap for Ethereum, because everyone wants to talk about, well, there's a lot of issues Ethereum has to get worked out. Let's talk about what are they doing, what's already been done, and what's coming up. So first of all, the rollup centric roadmap involves a transition to proof of stake. There's proof of stake, sharding, statelessness, rollups, and we know that the transition from proof of work to proof of stake, sometimes called ETH 2.0, they're actually upgrades being built on the consensus layer before they're being moved over to the execution layer. Okay, there's no quick solution, and I shouldn't say here before being ported. I meant to remove that. There's no quick solution because developing computer code is easier than going back into the code and changing piecemeal various parts of it. Okay, so it's a long process, it's cutting edge technology, and I think we need to be patient. Now, the goals of these upgrades are to improve decentralization, network resilience, security, to make things more user-friendly, and longevity, including dealing with things like quantum computing. Now, the Beacon chain, which I believe was launched in December 2020, will essentially make the transition of Ethereum from proof of work to proof of stake. Right now, Ethereum uses proof of work, wherein miners are paid in Ether for their work to secure and run transactions through the blockchain. So this is proof of work. But Beacon Chain will implement staking on the Ethereum network, a model that uses Ethereum to run transactions and secure the network. Currently, Ethereum's proof of stake work is held on the consensus layer, whereas proof of stake work, I should say, is held on the consensus layer, whereas proof of work operates on the execution layer. But later this year, staking should be fully implemented. Maybe early next year. We don't really want to get it too ahead of ourselves because we know how timelines can change over the years. But theoretically speaking, later this year or maybe early next year, staking should be fully implemented. The consensus layer will be merged with the execution, negating the need for proof of work. So we know Bitcoin's proof of work, Ethereum's currently proof of work. This transition will make it so that Ethereum will be proof of stake. So staked Ethereum run through a node will be paid out to Ethereum holders who are running the transactions on the network. And again, note that the Beacon chain was already implemented in December 2020. It has not made the transition over, or it has not had Ethereum made the transition over from proof of work to proof of stake yet. Now, proof of stake, we know Ethereum node operators basically just lock up their Ether their Ether to run transactions and secure the network. And proof of stake held on the consensus later to be merged with the executable layer means that there will be no more miners. Okay, so there will be no more miners, and I know a lot of people are excited about this transition. Now, sharding is something we really should talk about because after Beacon Chain, data shards will be implemented. Okay, they will be implemented, and essentially data shards just store data and make it available. They store it and they make it available. They will not be placed on the execution layer, but they will be used to accelerate rollups by feeding data to them from the Ethereum network. Now you might ask what rollups are. Again, we'll get to that in a minute, but data shards are essentially being used to accelerate rollups. So afterwards, even if Ethereum's network continues to be congested, by the time sharding is implemented in its stateless form, most people are already going to be using some type of rollup as an alternative to layer 1 solutions. So rollups are basically a new type of blockchain that do not need consensus or a permanent data layer. Their sole purpose is to execute transactions, compress them, bundle them up together, and port them over onto the blockchain that they are attached to. They are effectively a second layer underneath the underlying chain while using its consensus mechanism and data. So it's using the same consensus mechanism, but they're effectively a second layer underneath. Currently, Ethereum is the best smart contract and layer 1 blockchain to run decentralized applications on. I'll say that again. Currently, Ethereum is the best smart contract and layer 1 blockchain to run decentralized applications or dApps on. Now, that statement is going to be met with a lot of criticism, but that is generally my thinking here, and that yes, the fees are high. They will not stay high forever. And if you're looking for a decentralized network, Ethereum, a decentralized network with all these different applications, Ethereum is the best option. Okay, it's the best option when you take everything into account. Now, if you prefer lower gas fees, if you prefer really quick transactions, because Ethereum's continuing to make progress towards that, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just making a trade-off. And there's nothing wrong with making a trade-off as long as we recognize that it is a trade-off. Again, it does not make other chains superior to Ethereum, because if Ethereum wanted to, it could easily accomplish what a lot of other chains are doing. It just doesn't want to sacrifice what some of the other chains are doing, because it doesn't want to sacrifice some level of decentralization. It wants to remain as decentralized as it can, so basically allowing anyone to run a node, and it wants to do so and continue to solve the blockchain trilemma, which again we'll show in a minute. We also know that rollups have actually already been live. They've been live since early 2020. Loopring was the first one. So we already know that it's proven and battle-tested technology. There's over a dozen rollups and more on the way. Okay, so we know they work. It's not like this thing where we have to wait to see if they work. We already know they work, and they're already here, right? They're already here. They've already been providing thousands of transactions per second with dirt cheap gas. Many rollups like Loopring, DYDX, and Immutable X, they already subsidize it to the end user in terms of zero gas a lot of times, okay? And that's how cheap it is. What's missing for Ethereum right now is a smart contract rollup, and those are coming starting with Arbitrum later this week. Okay, technically, optimistic Ethereum has been live since January 2021, but it's currently only synthetics on there. The Uniswap v3 is coming soon. So you can see all this development in the space. A lot of people are a lot of different teams and chains are sort of building with Ethereum in mind, and they're not competing with Ethereum because they recognize that Ethereum is not, it's not going to be, it's very, very likely not going to be killed by any other chain. It doesn't mean that other chains won't carve out their own niche, but those chains will very likely not compete directly with Ethereum and what it's trying to do. Okay, so you can see the development in the space. The development's there. It's been there for a long time. Battle-proven technology. We're still developing. We're still developing. So patience. Now again, you might say, well, the fees are too damn high, Ben, and all this stuff is good, but if I have to take out a second mortgage on my house to just to provide liquidity to a pool, then what's the point? And so again, we have to say, well, why are they high? We look at the blockchain trilemma and we recognize that it's, Ethereum's trying to solve decentralization, scalability, and security. And it's really hard to have all three at once without some levels of breakthrough in technology. And that's what Ethereum's trying to do. And it is doing. That's what it's doing, and it's been trying to do for a long time without sacrificing decentralization. Some chains sacrifice decentralization for security and scalability. The trilemma: decentralization, security, and scalability. It's hard to have all three. There's a lot of research going on now to try to make it so you can be decentralized and you can be scalable and you can have a high level of security. So rollups, as I said, they're it's the best contract in my opinion and layer 1 blockchain to run decentralized applications on. As they increase in popularity and implementation, we should see the Ethereum protocol decongest, essentially reducing cost while increasing transactions per second. So it's sort of like two things at once: reducing cost and increasing the transactions per second. Normally you would think that increasing it would increase the cost, but that's what it's effectively trying to do, is reduce the cost while increasing the transactions per second. There are only two rollups that are the most significant in the space so far: optimistic and zero knowledge proof. The main difference between optimistic rollups and zero knowledge proof ZK rollups lies in their security. Most ZK rollups implemented today are public and in fact are not encrypted. They use ZK proofs for scalability rather than privacy. They are used to ensure all data is 100% valid between rollups and L1. The main exception again is Aztec, which uses ZK tech for both scalability and privacy. Optimistic rollups, okay, so we mentioned optimistic rollups, they use fraud proofs instead of ZK or validity proofs to ensure correctness. This is not necessarily the case with optimistic rollups, as they need some information or proof that the contract is there, what it does, and what it does to validate it. And I mean, regardless, we can expect cryptocurrency to adopt these solutions going forward, as they are more effective L1 solutions. And as Ethereum is working towards becoming the default host settlement layer for rollups, I would say its future looks bright. So beyond Ethereum 2.0, beyond ETH 2.0, we also have the Ethereum Improvement Proposal number 1559. Note that it is not part of ETH 2.0, but it is a significant update coming relatively soon. It essentially changes the way Ethereum handles fees. Okay, it makes transaction fees stable, reduces transaction delays, automates the fee bidding system, and creates a positive feedback loop between network activity and the supply of ETH. Now, if you've done any transactions on Ethereum anytime ever, you'll know that the fees are chosen by the user and put on an auction. And then people bid on these fees for the highest fees, and those fees are sent through to the nodes and the validators. With the update, with this proposal, there will be a base price with an extra fee of plus or minus 50%, depending on how many transactions are being run at the time, and essentially it means that peak times will have more transactions run on the chain while reducing fees, and it's expected that 75% of all transaction fees will be burned post the improvement proposal number 1559. The effects on the issuance rate of the transition from proof of work to proof of stake is substantial. When it's fully implemented, the issuance rate will drop from 4.5% to a very modest 0.5 to 0.8%, depending on the number of validators and node operators. Including the proposal, this means we could potentially see a deflationary monetary issuance rate on the Ethereum network. So, we have the issuance rate coming down to potentially being deflationary monetary issuance, roll-ups. Of course, we have proof of stake coming. We have the proposal we just mentioned. We have DeFi. We have NFTs. We have DAOs. So many different things. So many different things coming for Ethereum, and some are already here. Some may say it's potentially promising. I think it is potentially promising. These are the references if you guys want to check up on the work and see where everything's coming from. Remember, if you guys like the content, definitely subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Definitely subscribe. Let's go for 450,000 subscribers. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this presentation was useful in trying to better understand what Ethereum is, what are its current limitations, and what is it trying to do to overcome them. subscribe. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.